preparation from last season, spring. Nothing really changes. Push it in the weight room, push it on the field, conditioning. We had a successful season last year, so you don't want to fix anything that ain't broken. And you stay consistent and stay with what we know. We know work hard. Hard work pays off. You just keep pushing the guys in that direction.
When we have our workouts, they're open to everybody. So a lot of times the kids at the school will associate it with football workouts because the football coaches tend to be the ones that run them. But we don't turn anybody away. Soccer kids want to come, they're welcome to come. We do have some wrestlers that come that just wrestle, they don't play football and those sorts of things. So we highly encourage that.
Those juniors are now seniors and they're not used to being in leadership roles.
Welcome back to Champions, presented by Signature Championship Rings. This is the show where we shine a light on coaches leading the way, and today's episode hits at the heart of something every coach faces at this time of the year. How do we keep the energy up as the offseason grind gets real? Joining me today are three state champions who've cracked that code. We've got Jack Walsh, head coach of Maryland's Arundel Wildcats, fresh off a 3A state title. Gabe Walker, first-year head coach of Florida Santa Fe Catholic Hawks, who brought home the SSAA 2A crown. And Bob Gilbreath, the head man at Texico High in New Mexico, leading his team to back-to-back state titles. They share how they structure the off-season training, manage multi-sport athletes, build leadership, and most importantly, keep the momentum alive when things start to feel a little stale. Let's get into it. We're back for another episode of Champions, presented by Signature Championship Rings. And today we're going to focus on something that hits a lot of us at this time of the year, and that's kind of keeping the momentum and energy we had when we started this offseason, that excitement of a new offseason. We've been at it a couple of months. Most places around the country, the weather's starting to get better, but a lot of places we've been, inside, and so there becomes some redundancy. So how do we break out of that? How do we get into that next phase? And I think these guys have a lot of insight to this. And joining me, our champions today, we have Jack Walsh, who's the head coach of the Arundel Wildcats, the Maryland Class 3A state champion. Gabe Walker, Santa Fe Catholic Hawks. They are the Florida SSAA 2A state champion. Also joining us is Bob Gilbreath, the Texico Wolverines head coach. They are the New Mexico Class 2A state champion. Great to have all of you guys here. And as we get going, I just want you guys to introduce yourself to our audience and tell us a little bit about your program and what you've done there. And we'll go ahead and start with Coach Walsh.
Jack Walsh. I've been coaching here at Arundel High School since 2005, so 20 years under my belt. I've been the head coach going into my 8th season. Took over for a local legend, Chuck Markowitz. He's like the all-time winningest coach in the county. I think he's top 5 in the state, so I had some big shoes to fill. He's a mentor of mine, and we've been trying to keep the ball rolling here at Arundel. Finally got one this year.
Also joining us is Bob Gilbreath.
Well, my name is Bob Gilbreath, and I'm the head coach at Texico High School in New Mexico, actually. We're right on the Texas border, you'd think with a school named Texico, we'd be in Texas, but we're actually on the New Mexico side. A little bit of background on me. I was an assistant coach for 30 years, and the bulk of that was in the Dallas-Fort Worth Metroplex at some big 6A schools and a 5A school I was a defensive coordinator at. And I was able to retire in Texas, and this was my first head job. And I took this job in 2019. And since then, we've played 4 state championships. We've won 2 and lost 2. And then COVID got us 1 year, and we got beat in the semis 1 year. So, I've been able to take things that I learned from some really great mentors and apply it here at Texico, and been very successful.
Coach Walker, tell us a little bit about you and your program.
All right, I'm Coach Walker, head football coach at Santa Fe Catholic here in Lakeland, Florida. This is my 5th season coaching, my first year as a head coach. Previously, I was assistant coach at Foundation Academy. In year 1, I won the state championship. And my whole thing was instilling what I learned from the legendary coach Bill Castle, who I played for in high school. And that's when I came in the spring of last year, it was to get the guys bigger, faster, stronger. And I wanted to develop a blue-collar mentality around the program. And so far, so good. It's been working.
This is the part where I turn it over to you guys, and we're going to get things kicked off here with Coach Walsh telling us about what he's done this offseason coming off of a state championship.
Yeah, so in a typical season, we would start on January 2nd, coming right back from the New Year's, excited, fired up, ready to move in and get things moving in the weight room. But this season, with the season ending so late and us coming back, we really kind of felt like as a staff and the players, we had two things pulling, the celebratory side of winning a state championship in 2024, but then also getting prepared for the 2025 run. We made a collective decision to pause on our winter workouts and not start until March. I think that gave the kids a break from us a break from the kids, gave the other sports that use the weight room an opportunity to be in the weight room without football taking it over or anything like that, or any of those cliches that you usually get. So we've been up and running from March 1 now, so we only have 20 days under our belt in the weight room, so the newness and the excitement is still happening there. But I think the break from us was a much needed thing, rather than just being like, no, this is the way we always do it. We always start on January 2nd. You got to suck it up and be there. And it would be kind of hypocritical of me to be like, you guys need to suck it up and be there. But by the way, on Monday, I'm not going to be there because we got to go to the state house for the 2024 team. On Thursday, we got to dip out early because the guys that played on last year's team got to get ready for the parade or the pep rally or those things. So we thought it was in our best interest to pause and then come March 1, when spring sports start in the state of Maryland, for us to just be all in the weight room. And attendance wise, now we've seen a huge turnout in regards, I think, or to that. And I think a lot of that is because of not forcing them right back in it 2 weeks after they just played in the state championship game. So,
Well, I'm at a really small school. And so when we finished, our state game was like Thanksgiving weekend. And so when we finished, of course, we took that time from Thanksgiving to Christmas to do what you're talking about, just unwind. And I try to get our banquet over before Christmas. That way it's behind us when we start the new year. But even when we start in January, I got like 10 kids in off season. It's mostly, and those guys are powerlifting. And, those are most of my big boys. And so it's not like a typical power off season like we would have when I was at the big schools. When I was at some of the big 6A schools, when we got 150 kids, it's a little different. You got to be a little bit more structured and organized and have a plan for that day you come back from, Christmas break.
Oh, we're a much smaller program as well. But again, going back to last season when I first took over, we didn't have many guys showing up to winter conditioning, and I started in January. And fast forward to this year, we have a weight room full of kids because now they're all brought in. But being at a smaller school, as you can attest, we have a lot of kids that's into other sports. And when you're at a small school, your quarterback is the baseball player, your running back is the track star. And so it's all about navigating and communicating with other coaches when you're at a smaller program like ours, how you want to conduct it. And my defensive coordinator, he's my strength and conditioning coach. What we came to conclusion was, we'll just get the guys that we can, and if anyone's in a respective sport, we'll let them. They'll attend that first, and then if they can join. So we'll start with conditioning, and then we'll hit the weight room. Whenever their practice ends, wherever they fall in line, that's where they'll fall in. And if it's strictly football players, which we have a few, I would say about anywhere from 13 to about 16 kids that are just strictly football. They're already in the weight room, and they'll get the conditioning in the weight room in as well. But yeah, being at a smaller program, you really have to. It's a mad science behind it.
so my school is about 1,700 kids. We have about 120 in the football program, about 50 to 60 on JV, 50 to 55 on varsity. We do have a lot of multi-sport athletes. I think that's huge. I'm a big proponent of the multi-sport athlete. The one thing I catch a lot of other coaches that I've heard talk about, it's easy and it's like the buzzword to say like, hey, we love multi-sport athletes as long as they pick my sport first.
Right.
We don't really do that. I feel like we're about 5-10 minutes away from Annapolis High School, or Annapolis, Maryland. If I make the lacrosse kids pick between football and lacrosse, I'm not going to like the ones they pick. So when it's lacrosse season, those kids are exempt from our workouts. We don't hold that against them in any way. they should go play lacrosse. They should be all in on lacrosse. I do have the luxury here. I'm also the strength and conditioning teacher as a class. So we do highly encourage those football kids to take strength and conditioning as a class in school that they get a grade for. So that's really nice. So I do see the kids a lot. And then we have our after school workouts Monday, Wednesday, and Thursday. And we start at 3:30 on the dot and we finish at 5. So it's an hour and a half, 3 days a week. We can get a good workout in that time. The best of both worlds is they take the strength and conditioning class, plus they come to the 3-day-a-week workout. That's been really good for us. Our workouts right now are getting about 90 kids to them. The highest we've had is 96. The lowest we've had is 82. And that's with a number of the kids, playing baseball, lacrosse, track, etc.
I know when I was at big 6A school, Hebron High School in Carrollton, north of Dallas, we'd have between, like you're saying, probably 120, 150 kids in off season. I thought, we would spend most of January just get them in shape, really trying to get them weightlifting in shape, and then about February, mid-February, we'd start the competition phase and we'd put them in groups and do that kind of thing where it kind of break up the monotony. That was really good. And, every place has their way of doing that competition phase, Some get really super organized and team captains, and I think that's great for building leadership. One thing that I think is very important when you start, whether it's December or January or March, those juniors are now seniors and they're not used to being in leadership roles. And so you got to feed those kids opportunities to lead, whether it's lead in the school building, lead in the weight room, lead doing your calisthenics and agility stuff. I think empowering those kids, because they're uncomfortable, because they haven't been, you might have a few that were leaders, but for the most part, they were following that senior class.
Right. As far as summer, not summer, off-season training programs, how do you conduct each day? Is it certain speed days, powerlifting, or what's going on?
For me, on Mondays, we always start with a dynamic warm up in the gym. While I'm leading the dynamic warm up, one of my assistant coaches is taking attendance. We're big on attendance. As I said, we have 90 kids. So we want to make sure who's there, who's not, how we get the kids to make sure they consistently show up. We always piggyback the fun stuff they want to do with workouts. So we have an hour block during our school day. At our school, they call it Pride Period. But basically, the school shuts down for an hour, a half hour of lunch, the other half hour they get tutored, they go join clubs, etc. But we have a football club, and that's when we're doing our 7-on-7 and our installs and those sorts of things. But our football club meets on Tuesday and Thursday. So if you're not at workouts on Monday after school, you don't get to come to Tuesday's football club. If you're not at Wednesday's workout after school, you don't get to come to Thursday's football club. Obviously, again, like I said before, coach, I play baseball. You're exempt from the workouts because I know where you're at. You're accounted for. You're at baseball. That's fantastic. Or track or whatever. But you're just not showing up. We got a plan for life without you. So, you miss a Monday and a Wednesday. You also missed 2 installs. Well, when am I going to learn that? I don't know when you're going to learn it. We've already taught it. We're moving forward. You're leaving yourself behind. So that's really helped us with the attendance piece. But warm ups on Monday, we do a dynamic warm up, and then we work in some like linear acceleration stuff. Like we're going to burst today. We're not going to run hundreds. We're not running. I need a 5 to 10 yard burst coming out of the gate. After we do the dynamic warm up and the linear acceleration, then we're coming in the weight room. On Mondays, we're squatting and we're power cleaning. On Wednesdays, we're doing dynamic warm up at 3:30. We're doing some agility stuff. I do the dot drill a lot. It's not necessarily my favorite thing, but I get a lot of kids through it quickly. I don't want kids standing around. So I get a lot of kids to do the dot drill quickly. We'll go through the dot drill. One day they may have like a dot drill station, a ladder station, a cone drill station. We'll go through that 10 minutes tops. And then we're coming in the weight room and we're going to deadlift, we're going to bench press, we're going to overhead press. So we hit like what we consider our 5 core lifts on Mondays and Wednesdays. Thursday, dynamic warm up. That goes into change of direction drill, lateral run, those kind of activities. And then when they get into the weight room on Thursday, that's more of a circuit station, different movements, lunges, RDLs. We have a already tricked out weight room. So we have the jammers and those sorts of things, keeping it fresh. Today we had the wrestling coach come and he ran a 12-minute station and the kids wrestled for 12 minutes. So 12 minutes of wrestling, boom, you're out, you're back down in the weight room, and we cycle the kids through that way. So that's kind of the meat and potatoes of what we're doing.
Okay, and you give them Fridays off?
I will not do Fridays.
Yeah.
Everyone's entitled to their own opinion. I have found the more I try to push something on a Friday, the more I leave Friday angry. Right? So I'll have 90 kids on Monday, I'll have 87 on Wednesday, and I'll have 24 on Friday, and I will be furious. So we're Monday, Wednesday, Thursday, and
Yeah.
that is it. We're not messing with
Hey,
no Fridays. So yeah,
it's
not doing it.
the same way. Fridays, I'm the first person off campus.
Yeah. Racing the buses, no
Well, I
doubt.
got you beat because we only have a 4-day school week. So,
Oh, wow.
I'm moving to New Mexico. That's fantastic.
yeah, so it's pretty sweet. If the weather permits, I'm on the golf course on Friday. So we're going to lift typically Monday and Wednesday before school, and then that frees up our athletic period for typically through the winter months, January, February. We're doing plyos and agilities and ladders and shuttles, those type things with the 10 kid. I merged during that time with our female off-season kids, so we'll actually have like 25 kids, but half of them are the volleyball players or maybe a few track girls in there, and and uh, and then we'll lift during the period on Tuesdays and Thursdays. So we're getting not as much of the plyo agility stuff as I would like, but on a 4-day school week, it works pretty good. I'm getting a lot of weightlifting in 4 days a week for that, and that's not how I would do it if I was at a big school where I had a bunch of kids, but it works pretty good for where we're at right now.
Upper body, lower body, and every day we definitely conditioning. I think that's the biggest part of football on each level. The most conditioned team, of course, and the healthiest team at the end of each season. Those are the ones that's winning the championships. So definitely love to get conditioning in every day. And they get Friday. Of course, they get Fridays off, but throughout the week, we'll rotate it. We either do 60-yard shuttles, 110s, full gassers, half gassers, or whatever the case may be. Perfect 40s. We definitely get conditioning in every day. And again, off-season plan is get bigger, faster, stronger by any means necessary. And some programs, they have days where they'll back off. I believe each day, you push harder, harder and harder because football, you got to be mentally tough and you have to overcome a lot of adversity. And struggling with that weight, that's what helps you get through all of that in football for sure.
Coach Gilbreath, you had said something about working out in the mornings. I think that's fantastic. We don't do that. We do it after school, but something I wanted to add that we do here is when we have our workouts, they're open to everybody. So a lot of times the kids at the school will associate it with football workouts because the football coaches tend to be the ones that run them. But we don't turn anybody away. Soccer kids want to come, they're welcome to come. We do have some wrestlers that come that just wrestle, they don't play football and those sorts of things. So we highly encourage that. In the summertime, we switch over to whole school, and then we'll have over 200 kids in the summer. We do three or four different sessions depending on the number, and the female coaches, volleyball, field hockey, those sorts of sports, they'll be there as well. So I think it also is a great way not only to help build my football program's culture, but it lends itself to the school athletic culture and climate where, all of a sudden football kids are going to field hockey games because those girls were out working with them in the summer and those sorts of things. So the strength and conditioning program as a whole at Arundel High School has really kind of become its own entity and its own thing. And summer workouts is almost like the cool kids club that's not that cool. They're done by 11 and they're at the pool at the same time all their friends are waking up and out of bed. So it's kind of become its own cult following, which has been really fantastic. Coach Walker, you had mentioned about the intensity. I find, or I do at least, and if you guys have something else, I'd be interested in it. But I find we spend a week teaching everything, and I'm talking I don't care if you say you deadlift 500 pounds, you have a PVC pipe in your hand. And we do that for a whole week regardless. And then we get into a little bit of weight just so they can start moving weight around. And then we'll set a pre-test max for them. And coaches will be walking around capping it. So Like, hey, I could probably get 30 more pounds. Nope, you're done. Put that score in. We're not chasing a big number yet. And then I always set percentages on the core lifts, so like bench, squat, deadlift, power clean, overhead press. That's where it's like, hey, you're hitting 2 sets of 5 at 70% today. And those kind of things. Because I've found if I don't do that with high school kids, everybody has a 135-pound bench press and a 135-pound squat and 135. It's like we have other weights to use here, fellas. Or they'll have a 135-pound squat and a 225-pound bench press. And it's like, no, that's not what we're doing. So I've found I always like set percentages for them on those lists so I can monitor in large volumes what they're actually lifting and we can track progress.
So, of course, my situation is unique, but we lift during the season. We'll lift Monday, Wednesday, and Friday, and we'll lift before school. So, of course, Friday's game day. And so we just really never stop. Those kids that I have year round, they never stop. So when they start over in January 1st or whenever we come back from Christmas, we use what's called the tier system. I don't know if you guys are familiar with that workout plan, but basically you do your act. It breaks the lifts down into foundation lifts, which would be your bench, squat, and power clean. And then supplemental lifts would be like front squats or goblet squats or hang cleans for, it's upper body, total body, lower body. And so the kids actually bench press 1 day a week, or they'll actually back squat 1 day a week. And I found that it adds a lot of different variations. And so our kids don't get stagnant, just constantly trying to see how much they can bench or squat because they're only getting to do it once a week. When we start out in January, it's like high reps and low volume weight, so we're doing maybe 12, 10, 8, 6, 2 sets of 6 or maybe even three sets of 8. Very low rep, really working on that technique that you're talking about. And then as we progress, those repetitions go down and the volume of weight goes up. So right now, we're 6-5-4, we're pyramid type stuff on those foundation lifts and really trying to hit the mat, because we're gearing up for state championship powerlifting here in about 2 weeks. So with those kids, and then the bulk of our kids have been playing basketball. And so they just finished their state tournament last week. And so when we come back, we're on spring break this week. So next week will really be like what you're talking about, March 1st. We'll start our, what you would think of off season kind of, but it'll incorporate track now. And so track basically becomes the conditioning piece of our off season. We'll lift 4 days a week, 2 days in the morning, 2 days during the period, and then they're going to track every afternoon. And so I found that for the last few years, that's really helped our kids. It's amazing how those basketball kids, and we'll have 20, 25 kids that came out of basketball. And I had my running back, he gained 25 pounds running track last year.
Wow.
It was unbelievable how much he gained in strength and in just body mass going through that track workout.
As far as summer program, how do y'all conduct?
So our summers, we're 3 days a week. I still won't touch Fridays. It's Monday, Wednesday, Thursday. The only thing that changes in our summer is a lot of us on our staff are teachers. So we go in the afternoon or evenings. We're in the mornings.
Morning, yeah.
The varsity girls group will come in at 7:30. JV girls group will come in at 8. The varsity boys group will come in at 8:30, and then the JV boys group will come in at 9. And then each group will do again a dynamic warm up. Summertime dynamic warm up is a little bit different. It'll only take 15 minutes on the dot. We're very big on times. 15 minutes is 15 minutes, and there is no more. So if they're, but we had 2 more stations. You don't now. 15 minutes is up. It's time to move on. Because anytime you do that, the way we're doing it, if you run 5 minutes over, that bumps the next 5 minutes over that bump, And so we don't do that. But 15 minutes to warm up, and then you're in the weight room for usually about 30 to 40 minutes, whatever core lifts we've determined for that day. I tend to stay on same thing I talked about with the squats and cleans on one day, the other 3 on the other. From there, they go outside to our stadium. It's turf, and we have a full outdoor facility. We have 5, 6 huge tractor trailer tires we're flipping, and they range from 100 and some pounds to 600 pounds. We got sledgehammers out there. We got bars out there. We got racks out there. We got all that out there, the prowler sleds. So then we'll have like a 5 or 6 station circuit out there that the kids will rotate through. Then after that, then we have whatever their conditioning is that day. Football, it's usually some kind of sprint on Monday. Wednesday is usually more change of direction stuff. And then Thursday is Mount Arundel, which is the big hill. And we're running hills, we're bear crawling hills, those sorts of things. Then what we do for us, each state is different with their rules, but we also are allowed 7-on-7 in the summer. We're not allowed real football. So just like I said before, when our 7-7 practice starts, 11:01 when summer workouts end, right? Like, so there is no like, oh, well, I can make it to 7-on-7 practice, but I can't make it to workouts. It's they're both on the same days. So that's kind of how our summer stuff goes.
So for me, basically, we'll have 3 weeks in June and then 3 weeks in July. And we have what we call a moratorium period. So from the time school lets out, we have basically a week and a half, 2 weeks, depending on what day of the week the last day of school, where we can't touch them. Those kids, it's vacation time, they get away. And really, I try to make our coaches get away, and use that time for their families.
For sure.
And then there's about a week and a half around the 4th of July where we can't touch them again. And I don't want to touch them. June here, the kids play summer league basketball, the bulk of them, but we'll lift at 7 a.m. every morning, Monday through Thursday. And then that's 45 minutes. Then we'll go outside and kind of like what you're talking about, Coach Walsh, we'll have 2 days, say Monday and Wednesday, we're doing agility, change of direction, plyos, that type of thing. And then Tuesday, Thursday, we're doing linear speed training, those type of things. And it's welcome to anyone from 7th grade. For me, 7th graders on up. And I love the little kids that come because it gives my big kids a chance to have someone to lead.
Right.
And then pass down kind of our culture, and this is how we do things. And it's really helped our feeder program get those kids excited and help our younger level programs with those, because they like being around those big kids too. And so we weren't able to do that when I was at the big school because you have so many, you can't accommodate those kids. You have to do different sessions and all that kind of thing. So it's kind of unique to the small school.
I do a 7-on-7 with another locals program in Lakeland. It's Victory, Lakeland Christian, and just another program to do our 7-on-7 with. Now, I hate 7-on-7. I'm a run the ball type of guy. But, of course, you have to sharpen that because you never know when you'll need it. So we'll do a 7-on. We'll work out first, and then 12 o'clock we'll do our 7-ons. Tuesdays during the summer, but Monday through Thursday, same thing as winter conditioning, field, then weight room, and we pushing it every single day.
Hey guys, if we could transition a little bit here and kind of talk about, I guess this is a good foundation understanding it, like transition into, again, like I thought you did a good job explaining how the setup of this helps you guys keep that momentum, but addressing some of those, obviously the no Fridays, those kinds of things, but addressing that idea and then the transition kind of into this next phase as we're getting more towards, I don't know, you guys have spring ball, but that those stages of the year.
Mine pretty much the same, honestly. Weight room conditioning. So we play against Cambridge Christian out of Tampa, which that my brother was the head coach over in Orlando. He just got a new job over in Tampa. We play against Cambridge Christian in the spring game, so I'll be facing my brother. But yeah, it's the same thing as preparation from last season, spring. Nothing really changes. Push it in the weight room, push it on the field, conditioning. We had a successful season last year. So you don't want to fix anything that ain't broken, and you stay consistent and stay with what we know. We know work hard. Hard work pays off, and you just keep pushing the guys in that direction.
We don't have any spring ball in Maryland at all. Nothing. So, like I said, our 7-on-7 isn't even allowed to start until after the last spring state championship is played. So sometimes it's really difficult to keep football only kids motivated when there's not football, both in school and out of school. Keeping our hand on those guys through the weight room has been huge. We'll do, like, 2, 3 weeks from now, we'll do a little max test day. As much as I'm not a social media person, we've kind of adopted the social media world where it's kind of like, all right, who's going to get posted today?
Right.
It's not my thing, but the kids seem to like it, and the kids are showing up, and they can see it when one of the assistant coaches pulls their phone out. They know it's because someone's getting there. Then they'll all kind of be looking around, see who's getting the shot of the day, kind of thing. Yeah, so the keeping a kid motivated that loves football and you don't have football to hold over their head, that's the lifelong challenge. I think that's probably where I butt heads with kids the most, because in my mind, you can't tell me how much you love football and how much you want to play football. It's like, all right, well, I need you to do these 4 things. And it's like, well, I don't want to do those things. It's like, well, then you don't love football as much as you're saying you love football, or you love not doing the weight room more than you love football, which is fine, but it's not going to fit. So that's the never-ending battle. But I think it's changing some things up through the week in terms of, all right, on Thursday, like today, for example, the kids were in one of the stations was wrestling in the wrestling room. They had no idea it was happening. The wrestling coach is there teaching them 2 or 3 moves, and then boom, we're at it. We're going to wrestle today. And that might be on a Thursday. Next week, that might be on a Monday. The following week, we might be playing medicine ball, volleyball in the gym on a Wednesday. So kind of keeping them guessing so they don't start picking and choosing what days they like and what days they don't like, and always holding something else over their head. One of my big things is I'm going to take care of our needs before you get your wants. All right, you want to do 7-on-7, I need you in the weight. You want to wear jersey number 2, I need you at summer workouts, and we get to pick our jerseys based off of your summer workout attendance. So if you want jersey number 2, be at all the workouts, you'll get first pick.
Yeah.
So we're always attaching the needs versus the wants and the academic piece with football. And sometimes we lose some really good, talented players because of it. But I can't think of a game we've lost when it's like, man, if we would have had that kid with straight D's and an E that never came to workouts, that really would have helped us win that one. So it's worth it.
So I think I could relate to what Keith is kind of wanting from one of my previous positions when I was a defensive coordinator at a school outside of Fort Worth, Texas, where we had a large number of kids. And so obviously January, February were a grind. About mid-February, we started our competition phase and we broke them into teams and we'd compete every Wednesday. And the way we did it was pretty unique. We'd have let's say 6 teams, 15, 18 kids on each team. I don't know, maybe 20. But there would be certain coaches that were designated that had to go watch the kids compete. And so they'd go through 3 different stations of competitions. And then the top 4, or maybe the top 2 teams out of all the teams that competed, got to have an extra competition, kind of a king of the hill type competition based on how those coaches evaluated them. And I thought it was really good because it wasn't just on who won the particular event. It might be flipping a tractor tire across, the indoor facility, or might be who was winning the shuttles or doing stuff with bags or whatever the case may be. But it was about who was cheering each other on the best, or body language. Or, I mean, these coaches were really hard on these kids, and at times I'd be the evaluator. And so really it wasn't the coaches leading the kids, it was the kids having to lead themselves. And the coaches were non-biased about evaluating these kids. And so that really broke that time up. And then when we came back from spring break, now we're getting ready for gearing up for spring football. And spring football would start typically the last week of April. And then we start introducing football skills. And so that broke up the monotony and it added excitement. And then obviously we get into spring football. Here at Texico, obviously we don't have spring football and we don't do that. But one thing that I do here is when we come back from spring break, I'm going to take about my top 15 to 18 kids, and we're going to have a book study on leadership. And 2 years ago, we did a study on a book called Training Camp. And it was a fable, but it was about a kid that was trying to make a pro football team, and he got hurt on the second day of practice, and what he was going through and the trials he faced trying to get back, and it was really good. Last year we did a book about the All Blacks out of Australia, the rugby team, and that book's called Legacy, and we went through that book, and because where I was last year, we had won a state championship, but I wanted to sustain it, and that's what that book Legacy was about, sustaining excellence. And so this year I've got a very seasoned group of kids, and we'll start that book study. We're going to do it on a book called Your Win in the Dark, and it's about the things you do outside of. I haven't read through the whole book, but I think it adds a lot of value to our kids, and those kids we meet it one day a week in my classroom, and I'll have cliff notes for them and ask them to read ahead. And anyway, we'll go through those books, and it adds a lot of value to our kids, and I think it gives those kids confidence to become leaders, and that gives us some more momentum going into that last phase of off season.
Neither one of y'all spring football. Oh my god!
Yeah. So, it sounds crazy, but the only thing I could say is like no one else can have it either. So it's not like we're playing teams that
Yeah,
have it. We're all in the same field. So, I mean, it's all I've known. I grew up in Maryland, but yeah.
Yeah, and where I'm at, I had 5 seniors that graduated, so I've got the bulk of my kids coming back, and
right.
we'll pick up where we left off, I think, as far as the base offense and base defense and terminologies and those kind of things. We'll touch on a little bit over the summer, just doing 7-on-7. And actually in New Mexico now, we can have a 2-week padded practice period. I did not choose to do that last year. Contemplating doing it this year, just I think by putting pads on might entice them to show up. A little bit more enthusiasm as far as showing up for summer workouts. If we're going to put some pads on, go through some drills. I don't really want a bunch of contact stuff because I don't want to get anybody hurt in the summer.
Smallest school.
So, uh, so anyway, I mean, I think it just depends on where you're at. The climate where you're at, who you're competing against, like you said, Coach Walsh. And ultimately, what I like here in New Mexico, there's a big push for education-based athletics, and we're trying to make these kids become men of character. And we spend a lot of time on that piece of it. And I think it really helps when we get to the season because our kids are so much more emotionally, I call it emotionally balanced, never too high, never too low. And I spend a lot of time teaching that as we go through this off-season period.
Yeah, I use the off season as the culture building piece. That's when we really have our time with our kids and our hands on them, and we always take that we invest in the invested approach with everything we do. And we break down their attendance, we color code it, we show them. If I own a car lot and this kid has 10 red boxes, that means in the last 11 days he's missed 10 of them, right? And this kid has 11 white boxes. Who we hired? So we really kind of try to promote the attendance piece, best abilities, availability. And if you're not there, I can't do anything with you. So we reward the kids that are there. So day one, when we do finally get to do 7-on-7 and stuff, here and we graduated 27 seniors, 18 starters. So
Wow.
there's a lot of open jobs next year. And day one, there's going to be someone's got to go out there as a number one. My number ones are the kids that are there. He's been there the most. Now, if he falls over his own feet when he turns left and the ball hits him in the face, then somebody else is getting a chance on that. But if he goes out and snags 5 balls, I can't ignore that. So that's really our driving force behind everything we do is show up, put in the work, put in the effort. Our numbers have been consistent, have been fantastic. So that's kind of it. As far as keeping them motivated and driving the driving force, it's our presence. I'm never asking a kid to do something I'm not willing to do. I'm there. My assistant coaches are there.
Well, I think for me, it's I'll put up a poster and it'll, with basically a big attendance sheet and check them off as they show up every day. So it's open display. They can see who's there and who's not, kind of like you're talking about. But they want to be with each other so bad that they're willing to do whatever it takes to be there. And if they can't be there, the biggest thing for me is communicate with me and let me know why. Where you're at, I just want to know. You got to go. I got kids that are going to rodeos. They're going to show pigs. Doing FFA competition. I mean, it's crazy, but I'm cool with it because they're competing in life, and there are things that are bigger than what I got that are important. But I want them to want to be with their teammates so bad that that's what's going to draw them to be there is their love for each other, and they can't wait to be reunited with. And I know next week because those basketball kids hadn't been around us, I turn them loose. They go, and I don't ask them to come lift weights, do anything. The basketball coaches got them. But I know every day when we hit that weight room, we warm up to swag surfing. When that music comes on, those kids will reunite and they'll be bouncing in that weight room. It's pretty cool.
Yeah. And I'd say the luxury of Florida, especially Lakeland, Polk County, man, the kids, they absolutely love like football. So, we have a few that you have to chase down, but for the most part, the kids are tugging on you to like, coach, let's get it, let's get better. Like, so, we have a huge number of kids that just want football. Like, that's all they have. Like, football is their life for whatever the situation may be. But those kids, like they live and breathe football, and working out is a part of it. So they know, like they knocking down the door, like, hey, it's time to work out. As soon as the last bell rang from school, your kids at the locker room waiting to get in and get dressed, which is a beautiful thing to see, honestly. Especially being at a private school. We're a private school. Those kids, our kids, they love football, and they love everything that come with football, the pain, the weight room, and everything else. So it's really good to see.
And ultimately, I think that's what it is. It's about us building a relationship with those kids, and they can't wait to be back reunited with us, whether it's over a weekend or they've been gone for a season of another sport or whatever the case may be. That's the true joy of what we do is building
Yeah,
those relationships with those
right.
kids, and they're just soaking up everything we got to give them. Coach Walsh, you got a job ahead of you now. You got to replace 18 starters.
Yes, sir. Yeah, yeah.
Your
I got
JV good?
quite a few. Got a quarterback, a running back, three. We're a four-wide spread. Quarterback, running back, three of the four receivers, four of the 5 linemen, the whole D line, the whole linebacker core. It's
Wow.
gonna be a fun run. Yeah, we got some good talent coming up. Our big hurdle right now has been getting the younger JV players that probably need to grow up a little bit faster than they're ready to grow up. It's like we need you now. It's not. So they're still running around doing ninth grader things, and they need to get out of that if we're going to play big boy football. So, but we'll figure it out. We always do. But it's definitely a hurdle. But it is what it is. We knew kind of going into this year. I don't want to say all in, but it was a big year. So.
Guys, that was a great conversation. A lot of good details shared and different ways that you do it. And that's what's so fun about this, just seeing every single program is different in their own way and unique things you can do. And I'm sure our listeners learned a lot from this. And I guess to wrap up, would love for each one of you just to give a tip to our listeners out there in how do you approach things, or what would you do if you felt that, man, we're getting a little stale. We're losing a little bit of energy or momentum. What would you do to kick things? What would be kick things up? What would be your advice?
Well, me, number one, I say you got to find a way to make it fun,
Mhm.
whether it's competition or having an ice cream party one day or pizza party or going to watch some kind of competition together, go to a basketball game together, a baseball game, or go do something together, do something fun, to get away from the grind, because it is a grind, and we all have to go through it, but you got to interject some fun somewhere along the way.
Coach Gilbreath had also spoke earlier about an opportunity to develop leadership. And I mean, even yes, a player-led team is fantastic and amazing, but I think even those player-led teams, those players have to learn how to lead by example. So the biggest thing for me is I know as I get into a grind, I think my team always vibes off of me, good, bad, right, or wrong. If I'm kind of grumpy and preoccupied, it shows. Or if I'm arguing with refs, it shows. So if I'm starting to feel a little stale, it probably shows. And sometimes as a head coach, you got to fake it till you make it. I'm coming in that turf room that day, and I'm hooting, hollering, I'm cussing, I'm mad about something, even if I'm not mad about it, just because it needs to have a sense of urgency that day, and I think the kids vibe or feed off of that. And I think that's probably the biggest thing is if it's starting to get a little stale, maybe the coaching staff needs to bring a little bit more energy and wake things up a little bit.
Once we towards the end of the summer last year, and it worked out perfectly for us, and we'll do the same thing this year. Our last week of summer conditioning, of course, everybody's drained, everybody's beat up because of the summer grind that we just went through. We allowed a youth pastor, a local youth pastor, to come in, and I say about end of the towards the end of the last week of summer conditioning, we let him conduct our summer workouts. Well, he implemented fun with workouts, so they played a lot of games. He brought bounce houses and things for a couple of days, and grill from at the end of each workout. And we moved it, like you say, we do our summer conditioning in the morning. Well, we did that in the evening, and we had games and things set up for them and whatnot. They had fun with that, and it brought everybody back perfect timing when the season was about to start. So definitely changing things up allows us to bring back that morale that we had at the beginning of that off-season grind or training, if you will. And again, definitely plan on doing that again. It worked out for us.
Awesome, guys. Well, this series has been a lot of fun. Just talking to coaches around the country, seeing what you guys do that brought you to the top this past year. And certainly wish all of you guys the best of luck here in defending your championship. Coach Gilbreath defending that back-to-back, going for the three-peat. So good luck to all you guys. And again, thank you for your time.
Good luck. Thank you,
Appreciate
guys.
that.
Great.
Big thanks to coaches Walsh, Walker, and Gilbreath for joining us on Champions. That was a clinic in how to keep off-season energy high, build leadership, and maintain a winning culture. Whether it's shifting schedules, mixing in competition, or just knowing when to back off and let kids be kids, these guys are showing what championship programs do when no one's watching. If you got something out of this episode, be sure to share it with your coaching network. And as always, Champions is brought to you by Signature Championship Rings, where your legacy is our mission. Until next time, keep leading, keep grinding, and keep building champions.